Back here on HQ Spotlight, and if you feel like you're having deja vu with A.J. Brown voicing his frustrations, you're not crazy. The wide receiver once again unhappy with his role in Philly's offense. This coming off a 10-7 win over Green Bay, where he was targeted 3 times and only once after the opening drive. So he aired his frustrations on a Twitch stream.
I promise you, you might get 200, and I ain't trolling.
Hey, if you got me on fantasy, man, get rid of me.
He also doubling down yesterday, saying he is, quote, not apologizing for those comments. As we welcome in Amy Trask for a front office perspective on all of the major storylines in the NFL. Amy, including this one. A.J. Brown has very loudly voiced his frustrations again. So from that front office perspective, how is that situation handled mid-season and also maybe taken into consideration at the end of the year when factoring in a potential trade of the wide receiver?
I think Nick Sirianni is handling it perfectly. He has been very understanding of the comments, not critical. He has made a point of noting that it's not causing any kind of a distraction, that they value A.J. Brown. I think Nick is handling it perfectly. Fans want players to be emotional, to play with emotion, to be on the field with emotion. You don't shut that emotion off the minute you get off the field. Some teams might not like what he's saying. Some may constitute it as a distraction. I don't think it is. I don't think it's a problem. I think Nick is handling it perfectly, and I don't think it should be factored into any analysis of play calling, contractual status, or otherwise. Even if you are a team that doesn't like what AJ's doing, there is a saying I learned early in my career with the Raiders, which is the bus waits for some players. And that was shared with me. Team buses pull up in the back of the organization's parking lots. They take you to the airport. And if you're not on the bus is leaving. Unless you are a player that is needed on that bus, AJ Brown is going to help them. I don't have a problem with the comments.
Yeah, he is certainly a player that the Buffs would wait for. Meanwhile, the biggest news of the week, though, Amy, was the Giants firing their head coach, Brian Daboll. So for a general manager, what happens now as you prepare the organization for that next hire?
Well, the general manager is being retained, at least for the time being, presumably for the season going forward. I guess that could change, but when John Mara said the general manager would stay, looks like he'll stay. He's got to evaluate candidates. He can look internally. He can look at colleges. He can look at other teams, but he also has to be aware of what's going on within the organization. When a head coach is terminated, as is the case here, there will be those in the organization who put their heads down, do their jobs, want to prove themselves, want to maintain their jobs. There will be others in the organization who start scurrying about thinking, uh-oh, I may not be here next season, particularly if those are people that were brought in by the head coach or who worked closely with the head coach. A new head coach may decide to go in a different direction. So there are those in the Giants organization who I am confident are right now working the phones, looking for other opportunities, contacting other teams. And even though other teams aren't supposed to be talking to them because that would constitute tampering, let me let you in on a little secret. Tampering happens.
Yeah, it's one of the worst kept secrets in the NFL, but good to have a reminder here in this circumstance, and certainly not a strange thing for a human being to want to know, how does this affect me? But something that certainly helps the Giants is that they seemingly have struck gold on a young quarterback, which is half the battle in this league, in Jackson Dart. So since you have him now, how should that maybe influence the type of head coach you try to hire, like maybe opting for an offensive-minded coach to pair him with?
I don't believe it needs to influence your head coach hiring decision. Do you need to make sure that you bring in a coach who is going to best position him to be his best and to continue to let him grow and thrive? Absolutely. But that can be an offensive coordinator. You don't need the head coach to be an offensive coach in order to let Jackson continue to grow and to thrive. If you want evidence of that, look at last night's game. Mike Vrabel, Drake May. You don't have a head coach there with an offensive background, but you do have an offensive coordinator who's helping him be his best. So do I think the Giants need to pick an offensive coordinator, an offensive head coach? No. They do need to make sure that Jackson is aided and abetted, not to use the criminal expression, but I'll harken back to my law school days, bring out his best, and you can do it with an offensive coordinator. It doesn't need to be the head coach.
Well, certainly will be a big topic of the offseason, as will be some trades. But of course, we've got the deadline, so we didn't have to wait long to hear about trades, specifically coming from the Jets. I mean, they shipped off some talented defenders and Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, but they got something in return, a lot of future first-round picks. Was it the right move for the Jets to do that, to mortgage and look to the future? And also, how should those picks then be used now?
It was not the right thing to do, in my view. Always value players you know to be good players before you value or higher than or more than you value draft picks. You had two very, very good players. You traded them away. I get it. You're building for the future, as is said. But if you're building for the future, why wouldn't you build around two very, very good players at very, very important positions? Yes, you traded them for a haul of draft picks, but the draft isn't a science. There's no guarantee, no matter how good your scouts are, that those draft picks will pan out. There's men in the Hall of Fame who went undrafted for just that reason. So do I like that they traded away two very good players at two important positions for draft picks? No, I don't. If they can use those draft picks in a manner that they know is going to redound to their benefit, terrific. But you never really know. So bundling them up and trading for some fabulous players may be worth doing.
It'll be a fun next couple of drafts, at least, with 2 first-round picks in 2026 and 3 in 2027. One more thing I want to get your take on. Our Jonathan Jones reported that the Colts are preparing to sign Daniel Jones to an extension this offseason after the play we've seen from him this season. But you've also got Jonathan Taylor having an MVP-like season. So how does a GM manage this situation to make sure that the Colts are set up for the future?
Well, the key is this. You've got cap considerations and you've got cash considerations. And by cash, I don't mean cash on the spot, but over time. In other words, cap versus cost. So often the focus is on the cap. How do we do this? How do we do this? How do we get this in under the cap? How do we handle our cap? Well, let me tell you, the cap is simply a method of accounting. There's GAAP accounting, there's cash accounting, and there's cap accounting. You can manage the cap. The issue is cost. How much is ownership willing to spend? And if ownership is willing to spend the money to keep them both, you can get it done within the cap.
Very interesting stuff there. Amy, I could ask you questions all day long, but I'm sure you have a better use of your time, so we appreciate you, as always, being here, and thank you so much. Another reminder, you can watch all the NFL action this Sunday on CBS. It's Bucks and Bills headlining the early window. You've got Chiefs Broncos at 4:25 Eastern. You can watch that on CBS or stream on Paramount Plus.